one good example is the time that Dialende goes through Sexton and Gibson Park, who kind of trips. He's coming from the scrum. Sexton's left fairly one-on-one. Dialende is extremely powerful. We know that. And he goes nearly towards the try line himself. Doris holds him down. And then coming around the corner is the kind of situation where the Boks often score. They've had a massive line break. It's Peter Steph the toy with Eben Etzebeth latched onto him. That's a whole lot of power and weight. And Robbie Henshaw gets in front of them. He goes in around the ball and doesn't win the collision. Obviously, it's a 2-on-1, but he drops down onto the toy's leg, his left leg, and it's I think it's Peter O'Mahony and James Lowe who come in on the second, third involvement, and they hit the toy hard and they stop him dead. And Lowe actually strips the ball clear, but they're unlucky because it goes over the Irish try line and ends up with a 5-meter scrum because they brought it back in. But I thought that ability to recover very quickly within defensive sets was once again a big part of this win. And along with all the other attacking stuff and the kicking class, the defense absolutely is one that weirdly kind of goes under the radar until games like this where it's just impossible to ignore.
Yeah, I'd say they've almost weaponized their defence, Murray. Like, to be fair, like, how deadly accurate did you need to be at the breakdown, both sides of the ball? Like, there was times Ireland were a little bit sloppy. Tadhg at one stage gets counter-rucked when Ireland are in a decent position attacking-wise. And then the biggest play in the game for me is the Doris double action late in that second half, where he recognises the opportunity to counter-ruck poor body height from a South African perspective, makes the breakdown an absolute shit show. Then speed to feet gets on back on into the game, and as Steph Toy looks to shift the ball away from a precarious position, he snags his arm and forces a turnover, and then the massive hoof downfield by Tadhg Beirne, and then the impact of the bench was so telling, wasn't it? And it was Henderson on this occasion who identifies another opportunity to counter-ruck, massive turnover, and that is the build up to ultimately Ireland getting that 3 points off the scrum. So I thought, yeah, the defence is a real weapon for Ireland, and places a premium on opposition's attack to be as accurate as they can be. And I thought that was a major moment in the game, and was a good summary of the game for me. Ireland's aggression, both from a line speed perspective and at defensive breakdowns, and the impact of the bench, particularly Henderson on that occasion.
And weirdly, the cohesion that we use to describe their attack so often, it equally applies to their defence. And it's not something that as readily comes to your mind. We probably talk about connection a lot, and kind of the same thing, really. But even in those two instances you mentioned, Owen, there's that cohesion there, because Doris goes at Quagga Smith and he kind of slips off to the right of him, and then Porter just smashes him. He reads the cue really well and he finishes that job. I know they don't turn it over, but they've made, as you say, a shit show of it. And at the next one, when Henderson sees that it's Libbok, because I actually thought Henderson was going to go and jackal it first. I thought he was going to try and win that race, but he sees this is Libbok. I'm going to let him actually arrive first. Then he's going to swat him aside. He picks Dion Forey up with his left arm. It was quite a remarkable bit of athleticism. And to see Henderson back at those peaks athletically is wonderful for Ireland. But then Van der Fleer, who's made the tackle, is back on his feet. Doris, there's one more who flood in behind, and it's a really collective effort. And then when they're defending in phase, I think the connections they have are a real strength. They have such a good understanding of each other, man either side. What position is he in? And it's very intuitive. There's not a chance to chat often, and you actually can't hear each other in stadiums like that often. But you so often see the man either side of someone just ease off or actually go harder just to stay connected. There's an example where Willemse and Dialende get confused, and Dialende tries to switch under late, and Willemse plays the pass, and you remember he gets really frustrated and throws the ball on the ground. And it is a mistake by the Boks, but it happens because Dan Sheehan, with his agility and his pace, stays really well connected. He comes up first. He's got to worry about the pot of 2 forwards in front of him. When they go out the back, now he's got to work hard, and he does work hard to stay connected with Aki outside him, who also adjusts to give him time. He doesn't bite in early. He doesn't overcommit out to jockey towards the touchline. He's at the right pace, understanding that Sheehan is quick and will join up on the inside, and therefore he can shift a man out. And that's where the error comes from. Yeah, the Boks should have done better there, but it's because Ireland actually worked really hard to stay connected. So all the adjectives we use for their attack really do apply defensively as well, I think.
And there are parallels with the attack as well, Owen, in that in order for a defensive system like that to work, there are just more moving parts than there are for a typical rush defense, for example. It requires a little bit more intuition. I'm not saying that it's better than South Africa's defense. I actually don't even think it is. I think South Africa's defense is the best in the world, but just that Ireland are playing to their strengths defensively, and it requires a little bit more work and a little bit more mental energy in order to pull it off. And we often say about, say, players like Matt Hansen and James Lowe, they might not have the breakneck speed of Curtly Aronson or Ches Colby as athletes, but they're such intelligent players that they can offer more in attack and sort of join Ireland's attack in more central areas, etc. And defensively as well. I'm thinking of Lowe especially. Matt Hansen's very underrated defensively as well. But just the number of big game impacts he made in that game defensively, that was actually what made Lowe's performance an excellent one, I thought. It's knowing when to actually intervene, knowing when to go after the ball, knowing that he could wear even Etzebeth like a scarf, as Max Leaf described it on Twitter.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Murray summarised it brilliantly, and so have you, Gav, around Lowe and just how he's shifted his mindset, particularly, and his desire in around the defensive responsibilities of the game. I think probably the two things for me, yes, you need the framework of a brilliant defensive system and coach it excellently. But for me, it's attitude and it's trust. And I think that's what Ireland have in absolute buckets at the moment. There is an attitude and a desire to work for each other, hunt for each other, and really be dominant in that area, which I don't think we would said about Irish teams in the past, that to be really dominant defensively. And then the trust is the other side of it. Like there's an unwavering belief, as Murray mentioned, the connection to either side of the tackler, that there's trust on the inside, on the outside, that the guys are going to be on my hunt, on my jam if I need them. And that comes from, like, winning is just a brilliant formula, isn't it, for building that belief and trust in the system, and the attitude is there in buckets. And I think attitude for me critically was probably what won them the game.